It started with a period of civil war. Rebel starships striking from a hidden base had won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire.
Dun, dun, dun.
During the battle, Rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star.
Ooh.
An armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet, pursued by the Empire's sinister agents, Princess Leia races home aboard her starship, custodian of the stolen plans that can save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy. 42 years later, we're still talking about that first run from a Star Destroyer, and we're talking about how everything unfolded from there. A total of, 12 movies now? Because you have the 9 Saga movies, and Rogue One, 11. So Rogue One, Solo, and I don't think there's anything else out there yet. I don't acknowledge the holiday special. nor will I ever. Nor will I ever. All right, so 11 movies, several animated
Life
series.
Day to you.
Yeah, happy Life Day to you too. Hey, they made a Life Day reference in The Mandalorian, so that's how I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge that it's
I haven't seen it yet.
Several comic books, several novelizations, a handful of role-playing games, computer games, action figures, play sets, Legos, T-shirts, pajamas, pillowcases, kitchen tools, the works.
You name it.
If you name it, it's
Charms,
out there.
jewelry,
Charms.
The Star
stickers,
Wars
tattoos.
Empire.
I'm disappointed in myself. I do have a few Star Wars T-shirts, shockingly.
Yeah.
And
You didn't wear one today?
No, I have a Watchmen T-shirt on underneath this. What I should have wore though, my favorite Star Wars T-shirt is it's a big statue of Darth Vader, stormtroopers all around him, and it says "Stop terrorism, join the Empire."
There you go. That's it. So here we
I have
are.
one that Darth Vader is walking AT-AT.
Oh, right. The AT-AT's on the leash, the little tiny one. So here we are, 42 years later, and we're going to talk about Star Wars today. And that's why we brought our friend and our guest in, Billy.
I can't believe it's 42.
42, man.
And so I'm almost 50-ish.
Yes.
And I mean, it has been a part of my life since I was 7 years old.
Mhm.
And every year or two, something new comes out. Or like the comic books would come out. Or a new toy would come out. And it's just been such a huge part of my life. Do you really think this was the last? This isn't the end of the movies.
No.
This is supposedly the end of the
particular
Skywalker saga.
The Skywalker saga is over. So now they're going to take the story in different directions.
But does that mean Poe's done and Rey's done? Or does that just mean Luke and Leia and Han are done?
Luke, Leia, and Han are done.
For sure.
For all the
They're all
obvious
dead.
reasons. Well, well, like we said at the beginning of the show.
You gave that away a long time
Yes,
ago.
I did. The original Golden Trio.
Yeah.
Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Wait, no.
That's the redhead trio.
That's it. The original Golden Trio had their characters have all passed on, with one of the actors actually legitimately passing on. Our Princess Carrie. But yeah, when Disney took over Lucasfilm, there was all the talk about how we're going to be churning them out. We're going to be doing this. And yeah, they've stumbled into some hurdles along the way because they're working on their storytelling.
Yeah.
What did you think of Solo?
I loved Solo.
I thought it was a great movie.
I think the only issue they had was it was too soon.
Yeah.
After the last Star Wars movie, it was like 6 months, and then Solo
There's a
was
little
out.
franchise fatigue going on.
Yeah, they should have taken, they should have done it a year at a time, or at least a minimum year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the only negative I had with it. I love the guy that they cast in that
I
role.
thought he was a good kid.
Because he's got the same kind of swagger that Harrison Ford
He really
has.
did feel like a young Han Solo.
Yeah.
I could see it.
And, I mean, they ended that movie where they could have done a whole series off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Darth Maul coming back, where the last time we all saw him, he was cut in half, falling down a hole. And hey, mysteriously, he's back in charge.
And yeah, that's the thing, is he actually has a regular presence in I don't know if you followed any of the animated series.
Yes,
like Rebels.
loved Rebels.
Rebels was great.
Yeah.
Clone Wars and Rebels. So if you follow those, you see that not only it's not a surprise that he's back.
Right.
But in how they play his story all the way out to its eventual
There's
end.
a whole movie right there.
It is. It's a whole slew of
when
things.
they say they're done with this universe, I wonder if that means they're done with all of those characters, and the next movie will be another set of people.
I don't think so.
I hope not.
I think what you're going to see is you're going to see offshoots and probably playing on the same theme. Daisy Ridley has said she's done with the character, but I don't think so. I think because if you set up the importance of the character the way you do at the end of Rise of Skywalker, then you have to admit that she's going to be cameoing in something down the road. She's going to be popping up in the background.
And Disney, with a giant pile of money,
Yes.
they're going to say no to $20-30 million to come in and reprise it.
Seriously. Yeah, go ahead, play your period pieces, Daisy. Go ahead and do your mysteries and your thrillers and whatnot.
And
But
come
here's
back.
$20 million to come
Right.
back and play Ray for about a half a minute.
Yeah.
You know, and she'll come. She's not stupid. She is a very smart girl. She's hung in there through these years since Force Awakens came out. So, but what did we think of the movie itself, Rise of Skywalker? How did it tie up the saga?
It felt to me, I mean, I enjoyed it. It definitely wasn't my favorite Star Wars flick, but it felt like it was like 4 or 5 different movies
Put
all
into
crammed
one.
into one.
Yeah.
And they were trying to wrap everything up and put a nice little bow on everything. And there was some goofy moments that I kind of smiled at, like when Chewbacca got the medal.
Yes.
Like that was a
Yeah.
total nod to all of us Star Wars nerds that have been on
Yes.
the internet going, he got screwed.
Yeah.
So that was completely, that was for us.
There was a ton of fan service in this movie.
Absolutely. And,
Lots of little Easter eggs.
it could have been 2 movies easily.
I was gonna mention that. It felt like they should have pulled a Harry Potter
Right.
and
And-
done
and
a
split
part
it
1,
into
part
part
2.
two.
Yeah.
Part 9,
Yeah.
part 1.
Yeah.
Part
Exactly.
9, part 1, part 9, part you know,
Episode
episode 9,
9,
part 2.
Episode
Yeah.
9.
Parentheses
A.
A.
Yeah, they were really they were
There
doing
was
that
so much
whole,
in there.
Yeah.
They were in the series finale trap where you're trying to cram everything into 2.5 hours.
And like someone thought, oh yeah, we haven't covered this. We gotta
Right.
wrap this up.
I mean, the movie has no lulls in it. There's
Right.
no downtime. There's like a 30-second spot where you can run to the bathroom about 2/3 of the way through the movie. I found that out because that's what I did. But
There's
me,
actually a website for that.
yes, I know.
Run
It's
Pete run or something. Run
something
Pete,
like
something
that.
like that.
.com. But yeah, I mean, they come right out of the gates, blasting away, boom, right the second number 1 of the movie,
100 miles
and
an
it
hour.
just keeps going full throttle all the way to the end. And so that's cool because that means they're not screwing around. There's not a lot of downtime. There's not a lot of
Lulls.
lulls in the thing. There's no way to be bored in it with it. But by the end, 2 things: you're worn out.
Mm-hmm.
You know you've missed something at that stage, and then 2, it's like, but that's it. You know?
Yeah.
You know?
There was a little bit of that at the end.
Yeah.
There was one thing that was missing that I thought I read somewhere, and I tried to stay away from the spoilers, but when you live in this world and you follow people on Twitter and stuff, sometimes things kind of seep through. So I intentionally didn't go looking for it, but I thought I read that the guy who played Anakin Skywalker in 1, 2, and 3,
Mm-hmm.
I forget his name.
Hayden
Christensen.
Christensen.
I heard he was on the set,
He was.
and I was like, man, if Hayden's on there, he needs to make an appearance. Like, he could be the one to save Ben.
Uh-huh.
Like, of all these people, because Darth Vader was a big part of Ben's,
Life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kylo's life,
Kylo's,
you know,
yeah.
with the helmet, and he could have been the one to pull him back. And having him as Anakin would have been like goosebump for me.
Oh yeah. I mean, the Han Solo cameo, for starters, when you
No
think-
idea that was coming.
you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
see that one coming a mile away, and you hear, "Hey kid," like,
I
no.
was the guy in the theater who stood up and went, "No way!" That was me. That was me. I was so excited for that. Did not expect that.
Because Harrison Ford's been wanting out of this for so long
Forever.
to finally be free of it after the first of the new movies,
Right.
and then keep coming
Coming
back.
back.
It's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That would have been the moment for Hayden Christensen, in my opinion. That scene, that would have been the even bigger "what the hell just happened"
Right.
moment. If it's him in his Jedi robes,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would've been
standing
awesome.
there, bringing Ben back from the brink, that would have made that moment 10 times more intense.
I'm sure you guys all had, I mean, you've been around long enough, the VHS versions of the
Oh, yeah.
movies.
Oh yeah.
And you know how they changed the ending?
He's got it on Laserdisc.
Oh my God.
I have it on Laserdisc,
Wow.
I think, at home.
Yeah.
So at the end of, was it Jedi, where there's the 3 Force ghosts?
Mhm.
Yes.
And originally it was like old school Darth Vader.
Right. Sebastian.
Without the helmet, and then
Yeah.
and then the
They changed
re-release on DVD,
Uh-huh.
it was Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, what are you guys
What are you
doing?
doing?
How did
George
you do
Lucas's
that?
inability to stop screwing with it.
Well, it's like adding all the extra stormtroopers in when Han Solo comes running around the
Right.
corner.
Yeah.
He
And
comes
it's
out of
like,
that full hanger.
it's like, ah!
But when you see the videos, the side by side, there's all kinds of stuff on YouTube
Mhm.
where they took, pivotal scenes or scenes that were altered a lot, like Tatooine, where the original movie versus the DVD release, where
Right.
there's creatures walking around. When you see it side by side, you're like, okay, if he had that vision back in the 70s, there just wasn't enough technology to do that.
Exactly. For stuff like that, I get.
Yeah.
You know, for adding a little bit of flavor, add a little bit of spice. That's great. You know, like Tanya just mentioned the scene where they're chasing each other around in the Death Star, and Han turns the corner, and it was just like a couple of guys in the original, but now it was like a whole like battalions hanging out there. That adds a little bit of a kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But when you start
tweaking more things.
when you start tweaking things just to sake for tweaking,
Just because
you know, come on, let's just say it. Han shot first.
What's wrong with that?
You know, why
So
did
what?
that have to be changed?
He was a scoundrel. Of course he shot.
It's gotten worse. Have you heard what happened now that A New Hope is on Disney Plus?
Oh no.
It's been tweaked again. That scene.
No.
Oh, I did hear something.
When Greedo
about
gets
that.
shot, he shouts out this nonsensical word and then falls over.
Yeah.
It's in the original. For those of you who don't know this or have been under a rock for somehow, in the cantina scene where Greedo and Han are bantering back and forth, and it looks like Greedo's about to kill Han right where he's sitting. Han shoots him from under the table. Done. Greedo falls forward. It's over. Han gets up. Sorry for the mess. Pays off the bartender. Walks out. That's badass. Okay. Now we are arguing over the fact that there's a lot of extra blaster fire, and it becomes a shootout at the table, and it looks ridiculous. But then Han shot second. Now all of a sudden, Greedo shot, so Han has to respawn. Now, and I know the word and everything because I've actually watched it. The blaster fire starts up. You see Greedo's arms start coming out from behind the table. Then Han shoots him, and then Greedo yells out "McClunky!" and
the hell does that mean?
What the? This is a high level of what the fuck? Come on! And then he goes face first into the table. If George Lucas, if we could just put him in a chair and tell him, "Stop! For the love of God, stop changing it!" You know, that would be the one thing I want.
I'm reading it right now. It says, "What McClunky tells us about Star Wars Episode 9." It's like they're saying it's the name of Greedo's childhood sled. It's this. It's
Rosebud.
Okay, that would be funny if that were the case.
Yes.
That's something the Simpsons should do.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just like
Psycho
it's just
Bob.
a funny sounding word.
Okay, so my son, we were talking earlier about my son started out being interested in it, probably because I'm interested in it, and the interest is worn out. He hasn't even seen the last 2 movies.
Okay.
So, but his first introduction to Star Wars was the Family Guy, Blue Moon.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
when we first watched Star Wars, after he saw that first, and then saw Star Wars, and was like, "Wait a minute, that's not how it happened on Family Guy." I'm like,
No,
this happened first.
Family Guy's a parody.
Yeah.
Hello.
This is not what you think it is. This is not the film you're thinking.
Exactly.
Okay. And I think as we start kind of moving through this conversation, the thing that's you're saying your son kind of like didn't even watch the last 2 movies. I know my son has not watched the last 2 either. And I just think of bracing myself when I go to see these movies because I'm trying to fight the fact that my opinion has already been colored for me. And I want to just enjoy the movie. But I have this chorus of voices that the internet has given you.
That's the problem with the internet.
Yeah.
It totally gets in your head.
Yes.
That's why and Billy mentioned this.
Mhm.
I try and stay away from opinions, spoilers.
And you try to, but you know,
I'm pretty good at it.
yeah, because
To be
you're
honest with you.
not as prevalent as in social media as others.
Yeah, I scroll through Facebook and but if I see if I start to see an opinion, I'll just
scroll.
next.
Yeah.
Next, I don't want
Like
to
I
know
follow a lot of the authors. I want to know when the new books are coming out, which characters are developing, stuff like that. But I don't necessarily want to know the movie before I go to see the movie.
Right. But now the internet hate has just
I'll throw Rose out there.
Yeah.
When I first saw the version that she was in, where she kind of started out as this like kind of goofy character, and then took him prisoner, and then they sort of, I don't know, was there a love thing there? I don't even know what that was.
It was a very strange.
There's a weird attraction from her to him for sure,
Yeah.
which they could have developed in the last movie, but they didn't.
They skipped
apparently.
around
They
it.
skipped over it.
Yeah.
But the hate that she got as a human being on the internet was like
It's ridiculous.
It's
like Jar Jar Binks hate.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, do you think Jar Jar Binks was the initial sort of gateway to people expressing hate on the internet?
Can you imagine if we had the internet we have now when that movie came out?
Oh God.
The hate would have been through the roof.
I mean,
For Jar Jar.
the poor actor who was behind Jar Jar, he's talked about on several occasions in interviews that he almost became suicidal because he couldn't handle the fact that people hated him that much. That he was like, wait, I was just doing the job. I was just doing what I was told to do. I'm just trying to bring this character to life, and he's supposed to be fun and lighthearted and silly, and this was his job. And the resounding just wave of animosity that came his way was horrifying.
At what point did fans decide it was cooler to not like the things they liked?
The internet, as it rose, and everybody got an opinion that they could hide behind.
But I still want, if I'm paying for something, I want to like it.
And that's a thing. And that's the thing. There's a practical aspect that a lot of these people just don't care. They want their opinion to color your opinion. That's what a lot of these guys are all about. They're all about, they're gonna hit you with such vehemence that you have to hate it like I do, because if you like it, then you're wrong. And I mean, what have I said on several occasions about Star Wars? And this was before Last Jedi even came out. Star Wars is not a niche thing. It's not a nerd thing. It's not even a continental thing.
Super
it's
mainstream.
Global. This is a global cultural consciousness.
Yep.
There are billions of Star Wars fans. So the ability to make the perfect Star Wars movie no longer exists. Anybody who says, I'm going to be a director of a Star Wars movie, you are going to fail 40% of the fandom right off the bat just by existing. Because there's going to be people who are like, well, I think this should happen, I think this should happen, I think this should happen, and they don't want to brace themselves for anybody's idea. They've already made their mindset that, oh, you're going to take the story this way, that's the wrong way to do it, therefore the movie sucks. Have you seen the movie? The movie hasn't even been made yet. Oh, it's going to suck anyway, because they're not following what I want them to follow.
I don't even get that. I want the artistry of the filmmakers. That's why I go to them. If I could make the movie, I would.
Yeah.
I'd be the millionaire, but I'm not. So I'm paying you to entertain me, and that's what I want. Over the past couple weeks, I've had some extra time, so I've watched a bunch of movies. Not even geek ones, but you may have seen my Facebook post. I like this one. I didn't like this one. I'm not saying you shouldn't like something or voice your opinion when you don't like something, but to actively go out of your way to not like something.
Well, a lot of people were killing it before it even came out.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I saw a movie yesterday I hated. I didn't want to hate it. I borrowed it from the library for a reason, because I thought it would be entertaining.
Which movie was
I was wrong. It was a Robert De Niro movie called The Comedian.
Okay.
And it's just a hugely talented cast and a good director, but the movie was just effing terrible.
Okay.
And I spoke about it on the internet, and that's enough. Maybe someone liked it. I wish I'd read the reviews before I borrowed it from the library. It didn't cost me anything monetarily, just 2 hours.
That's it.
I would have rather watched something else if I'd had. And I don't feel bad for not liking it, but if I'd liked it, I would have been happier. I think the toxicity, that's a word we've used.
Yeah, several times.
Is just terrible. There was a podcast I used to listen to all the time named Nerd of Mouth. It was a nerd podcast.
I remember you talking about them, yeah.
A comedian by the name of Mike Lawrence put it out with some friends of his, and he stopped doing it after the Lady Ghostbusters movie just sort of brought that toxicity for it. And he goes, why am I even doing this podcast? He didn't like the anger of the nerd culture.
It's all culture. It's not even just nerd culture.
Yeah. It's a distillate. It's kind of a microcosm of what we deal with in everyday life across everything these days. It's just everybody just wants to be angry and wants to not like what you're doing if it doesn't agree with what
and it's okay to not like things, but like it
really is
to be angry at people who might like it, to not like it before you've even seen it is ridiculous.
Yeah. Moving back to the story at hand, because we're gonna this is par for the course for us. We're all over the place. You had mentioned Billy Kid.
Yes.
William.
BK.
And Billy. Billy. Yeah. There we go. All right. You had mentioned that you liked Rise of Skywalker, but it was not your favorite movie. Which one of the 11 is?
Ooh.
And if you don't say Empire Strikes Back, you're wrong.
That's what I was thinking.
I was gonna say it's really a toss up between Empire and Jedi.
Okay.
And I don't know. There's some things about all of them that I like. There's some things that I didn't care for.
Mhm.
Like the fact that there's a musical number in every movie. To me, it's just so dumb. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Sorry.
The teddy bear dance party.
The teddy bear dance
Come
party.
on.
But there's so many things I liked about Jedi and Empire.
Mhm.
I mean, from a special effects standpoint, George Lucas changed the whole industry.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Without a doubt.
I mean, the original Star Wars movie, they didn't know how they were going to do some things after he had received the funding. He had all these storyboards, and then he's like, well, fellas, we need to figure out how to make this ship turn and have the other things follow it in frame with it. So let's make that. And they ended up making all these rigs that changed how the entire industry works. And it's fun for me to go back and watch the movies with that context. And the characters, by the time they got to Empire, were sort of developed, but Jedi, you knew exactly who they were, what they were about. And it, I like the way it ended. I like a happy ending.
Yeah.
And Jedi certainly had that. So.
And then the prequels came along.
The prequels aren't as horrible as I remember them to be.
They do have. See, the thing about the prequels is there are a lot of good parts.
All the
Tons
fight
of good
scenes.
parts. Yes.
A lot of good parts.
They
a lot of
went in
good
with
moments.
a level of expectation
Yeah.
that just couldn't be met.
Yeah. Well, that's that whole global consciousness thing I was referring to earlier. And I'm a victim of that when it came to the prequels. When they came out, I had an expectation level, and they could not meet that level. So therefore, I wrote them off for the most part.
So are you ready for a level of nerdness? I'm not sure if any of you, hopefully somebody will agree with me that they
Go
do
with it.
this. I rip the audio off the movies and listen to it while I'm driving around.
Nice.
So you know the movie. You've all seen them a zillion times. So
You
you
could
visually
picture it.
know
You can
what's going
visualize
on.
it.
But the acting in those movies, when you take the visual away, is so bad.
Really?
So bad. And the original 3, 4, 5, and 6, were they are what they were. But 1, 2, and 3, the overacting,
Yeah.
Hayden, I loved his character, but man, that was rough in some
wooden.
parts.
Our
It was
princess
very
couldn't
wooden.
fix that script.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
I mean, the scenes between him and Padme when they're quote unquote falling in love with each other, it was the least believable romance I've ever seen on film.
But Rebels, the cartoon, did a better version of making them realistic characters that were in love and cared for each other than the movie with actual human beings in it.
Oh, it was terrible.
But they weren't, you know what, when I watch Phantom Menace, I just zoom through the beginning of the movie until the point that they're done with the pod racing.
Yes.
And then
Not a bad movie from that point on.
If you skip the
Skip all that.
that makes sense.
Right
Go
up
all
to
the
the
way
end
up
of the
past
pod
the pod
ride.
race.
Yes.
No, you're off and running.
It's so
that
slow.
works. That's how I did it watching it because Riker wanted to watch it one day a couple of years ago, and he's like watching, and he's like,
This is boring.
Right. So therefore, I just started fast forwarding to like he goes, "What's the next battle scene?"
There you
And
go.
then that. And
Have you ever watched them in the Machete Order? Have you heard of the Machete Order?
I have, but what is it?
It basically cuts out 1 completely. Phantom Menace disappears.
Okay.
All right. And then it goes 2. I can't remember. It was.
Hold on.
Oh, hang on. You bring that up.
Yeah,
real quick.
Google that.
Because they do it, and it's a really weird way of looking at it, where it's like it starts with 2, and then it goes to 4, 5, then 3, then 6.
See,
if I think straight,
I've watched them chronological order that they would be in actual time.
like 1, 2, 3,
So
4, 5,
like-
6, 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never done the machete.
All right, so it goes 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. All right, so basically what they do is they start off with A New Hope right off the bat. The original is the original.
Okay.
Then they go to Empire Strikes Back, and then they're going to give you your flashback
Oh,
in 2 and
that's
3.
kind of cool.
So they give you 2 and 3 so you can see what was happening, and then they jump to Return of the Jedi and say, now this is how we're going to solve, we're going to bring it all
Well, that
together.
lays down the whole father-son thing and how Darth Vader became the bad guy.
Right.
That makes
So
sense.
it preserves Luke, I am your father as the shocker.
Yeah.
It says
Basically.
episode 1, Phantom Menace is noticeably absent. Very little Jar Jar, no annoying little Anakin, and the talk of the mitochondria midichlorians. And it uses the original trilogy as a framing story for the weaker prequels. So this is what the
Somebody really thought that through. Wow.
Yeah. I wish I could get paid for stuff like that. I really
Yeah.
do. My God.
It was a blog post by Rod Hilton.
And it's been around for a while.
Yeah,
I remember
this
that
one
much.
was 2012. Was
Yeah,
the
but
machete order.
it's been around since like the concept's been around since like 10 or 11 at the very least. So anyway, but that's
I
a
don't know
thing.
what's going on over
But
here.
it takes Phantom Menace and just dumps it in the bin right off the bat. So which
I loved Rogue One.
Rogue One was a phenomenal.
I
love
movie.
really enjoyed that.
The
Yeah.
big difference between those movies and anything that came previous was when they were in a ship and they were taking off or they were landing, whichever version it was, that they were doing at that moment.
Mhm.
Like, it looks so real. The
Mhm.
lighting coming in from outside, like if you were on an airplane coming through the clouds, the
Yeah.
lighting, I mean, they nailed it. They made it look like they were actually in those vehicles that probably don't exist anywhere
And if
in a
that's
real form.
if that's the one thing that Star Wars has consistently done at an amazing, solid level through all of its properties, is the visual.
Yeah.
Is that aspect of bringing you into the world. Here's our technology. It's every day. It's nothing fancy for us. This is what we do every day. This is our
Right.
thing. And making you feel like you were a part of it through the visual context. So you can talk about how the story is constructed, acting, dialogue, whatever. That's all, you can debate that until the cows come home. Right, Ann? Are they home yet?
Hey-oh.
No, they're not home yet.
They're still
Out in the fields. But the visuals have been that consistency. Like you were saying earlier, from the original movie, they were cutting edge. They were
There's nothing
groundbreaking,
else like that
trailblazing.
at the point.
Exactly. There was nothing.
Look at
not
what
even Star Trek.
Star
could
Trek
do
was
that.
what we were watching before, and it was literally a ship on a string
Yeah.
going fring through the frame. And then George Lucas comes along and just, does that voodoo that he did.
He changed the way that sci-fi was constructed.
Yeah.
Period. And hands down, and that will never be argued with. The fact that he can't write dialogue,
Well,
debatable.
it's-
But we're going to talk about his impact on the industry on the whole. So do we want to carry on with Rise of Skywalker and what we thought about it?
Well, I'm just looking here. I've Rise of Skywalker looks for a first Star Wars Oscar win in nearly 40 years.
I'm wondering if it's going to be like the Lord of the Rings effect. Lord of the Rings had this monumental epic 3-movie trilogy, and it went relatively unnoticed by the awards
They didn't win
folks.
any Oscars
They,
for
at the end, they did.
sound or anything?
No, Star
Not
Wars
since
has-
1984.
Wow.
John Williams has been nominated over and over and over and over and over again, like 52 nominations or something like that.
Yeah,
I
it
can't
says
remember exactly.
A New
It was
Hope-
staggering.
Wow.
all the films preceding Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker, have earned a total of 34 past nominations, with 31 of them for movies of the Skywalker saga. No Star Wars film has won an Oscar, so it's actually for the film.
Wow.
But A New Hope won for score, sound mixing, visual effects, costume design.
Okay.
Nominated for 3 Oscars, Empire Strikes Back, one for sound mixing, as well as special achievement and visual effects. So I'm thinking they're looking at the actual
The acting categories,
The actual
and the best picture.
best
Mhm.
picture. Yeah.
I'm horrible with names, but the original sound editor is from Geneva.
Oh, is he really?
There's a book, if you ever see this book sitting on the discount shelf at Borders, Barnes and Noble. Borders is long gone. God rest its soul. It had the little sound bar, and when you're reading through the books, like the laser, pew, you're reading how they made the sound,
Mm-hmm.
and then you punch in the number corresponding to the picture, plug your headphones in, and it plays the sounds for you, so you can
Phenomenal.
hear exactly what they're talking
Oh,
about.
that's so cool.
So yeah, it looks like they've been nominated for things for the
Okay.
different Star Wars. They've had a nod in regards to nominations, but it says there's a 36-year Oscar drought for Star Wars.
I don't know though. Is Rise of Skywalker Oscar worthy?
It depends
That's a
on
thing.
it depends on what
A
they
category?
potentially would get, because
Visual effects is a no-brainer. Score is probably a no-brainer. But quality of the movie itself, is that a best picture kind of a candidate? I don't think so.
And acting, I mean,
yeah, because Force Awakens in 2015 were nominated for 5 Oscars in editing, original score, visual effects, and sound categories,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't get any of them.
Best act, for acting, supporting acting, I would definitely give Oscar Isaac a nod because the Poe Dameron character is probably my favorite of the 3 movies. He was always so natural.
How does he keep winning?
His delivery was just always so just genuine, just so earnest.
yeah.
And there was no doubt about the character and his the chutzpah of the character itself. I'm waiting for General Hux. Yeah, I'm on hold. Yeah,
Do you
tall.
think they nominate Carrie Fisher just because?
I was
Yeah.
wondering that.
Yeah,
Just because.
just give her a nomination just
Last
as
chance.
a nod.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, Heath Ledger got one for the Joker, and
He
admittedly,
won.
the Joker character though in The Dark Knight was That was
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
It was.
I feel bad because Rose, you know, we were talking about Rose a moment ago. She really did get shafted in Rise
Did
of
she
Skywalker.
get edited out?
What happened? And yeah, it was basically what
Like
happened.
they had more in the can.
They
just
wrote
wouldn't use
her into Carrie Fisher's scenes.
Yeah.
And then Carrie Fisher died. And they were like, now what do we do? And instead of,
We'd have to rewrite the whole script. To
we
fit her
did
in
we did a
somewhere.
podcast talking about what, you know, armchair quarterbacking, what we would have done in their position.
Yeah.
And I think a rewrite was probably in order. It was definitely a challenge, but I mean, it's not like they didn't have the budget for it, or hey, you know, you have to understand this is what's going on. But what happened is, I guess the story that I've heard is that Rose's scenes were tied to Carrie Fisher, and when all the final products started coming together, and the CGI just wasn't there. You know, the editing and getting Carrie Fisher's previous footage into the scene, it was just obviously not good.
Right.
So they started cutting those scenes out, and with it, there goes Rose Tycho. You know, so killing.
That's a tough call.
Yeah, that
because
was
you're
tough.
either reworking the entire movie,
Right.
or just eliminating one character. And
What would
I
you
think they did the right thing.
If you were in Kathleen Kennedy's position, and you're the executive.
Sorry,
producer-
Rose. Sorry, she's the last one in.
Yeah.
You know,
Last one.
if it comes
First
down
one out.
to preserving what footage you have from Carrie Fisher
Mm-hmm.
to use as Leia, you have to use that. You can't not use her.
I bet they do right by Rose at some point, though. In a future Star Wars movie,
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to create a story for her that will sort of redeem what the audience has thought of her so far.
Or maybe a future Disney Plus series
Yeah,
in
Never
the Star
know.
Wars universe. You never know. The Adventures of Rose.
Baby Rose.
Being you know, you see Baby Rose being cradled by adolescent Yoda.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It could be Rose and her sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
a story
Yeah.
there too, because
There is
they
a story
mentioned
there.
her, but they
Right.
never showed her, right?
Well, they did.
Or they did.
Yeah,
There was
she
a very
died-
quick
she
shot.
She died
died.
in the Last Bomber.
Right.
In
Yeah.
In Last
So
Jedi.
she got the necklace back.
Yeah.
Right. Because we had talked about way back in the day. We had talked about if you want to make what became the Rise of Skywalker and have Princess Leia, General Leia, a presence, how do you do it? And I had come up with the idea of recasting the part, and then we kind of brainstormed what actress would be suitable to come into Carrie Fisher's shoes.
That's tough.
Meryl Streep came up.
Yeah.
She's
She's probably the only person who'd have the street cred as an actress to pull
Right.
that off.
right. But then we jokingly came up with who had the voice and the look and the size. Stevie Nicks. So that was
She's got that smoker's voice.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it, the faces are almost the same. They could have been cousins.
Candace Bergman.
Candace Bergman would have been a good one too.
She'd be about the right age.
I like that idea.
And the other thing we talked about is aging Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
They could have CGI'd her. I don't know what you guys think about the whole Tarkin thing in Rogue One. I honestly,
It was
if I
cool.
didn't tell you that was a CGI,
Uh-huh.
I don't think you would have noticed.
It was CGI.
Yeah. Yeah. Ketchup. Yeah. You were that.
I like ketchup.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. I mean, when you see it through most of Rogue One, eventually, kind of like there's a hint that there's some CGI going on here.
It's
But
pretty well done.
it was really well done, and the actor who did the voice was so nearly perfect.
Yes.
I mean, he was channeling his inner. Oh my God,
Tarkin.
excuse me.
Are you okay?
Peter Cushing. I'm verklempt.
Give me some water.
What's that? Yes, please. Thank you. So I thought that was really well done. And then they did the cameo of Carrie Fisher at the very end of Rogue One, the young Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
That was very blatantly CGI.
That one didn't care for that one. It
Yeah.
almost didn't even look like her.
It really didn't. Thank you.
And I don't think the version that they did in The Rise of Skywalker, where they were out in the woods, where it's her
the
and
train
Luke,
scene.
that didn't look like her either. It didn't look
No,
like either
it
one
was,
of them.
No.
That
Was
was,
that her daughter?
her daughter Billy Lord and
And then they CGI'd the face.
yes, CGI.
So was
the
that
face
Billy
and-
Lord's face we saw?
No, it
No,
was
it
Carrie
was Carrie
Fisher's
Fisher's
face digitized onto Carrie Fisher's daughter.
Gotcha. That's
And
creepy.
I
Yeah.
can't remember who took over Mark Hamill's spot.
Oh, it's just
some-
a stuntman.
No, they said it was Luke something. Or Star Wars.
Yeah, well, see, now you have a computer. You can look it up again. We're getting our studio back together again.
But
This
it's
is
just amazing to me that they could do so good with Tarkin and so bad with Leia.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was a split. It was, what was that scene? 10 seconds at the end
Tops.
of Rogue One?
Tops.
Crazy.
but let's talk about that scene at the end of Rogue One. The gauntlet.
So good.
The Darth Vader gauntlet.
Oh, where he comes out just
Oh,
tearing through
my
people.
God.
That could be one of my favorite Star Wars scenes ever.
That was an epic
that whole
moment.
sequence right
That
there.
was a total epic moment.
Yeah.
As soon as the lightsaber lit, you're like, oh,
Going down.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And there's this cluster of rebel soldiers, and you feel bad because you know these poor sods are screwed.
Done. Yeah.
They are so screwed.
Now, has anybody seen, and Billy, have you seen the movie Skywalker more than once?
Yes.
Okay. I've only seen it once. I saw it. It came out on the Thursday
Saw
night.
it twice. Yeah,
I
saw it
saw
opening
it.
night.
Is it still in theaters?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still playing at Tinseltown as of today, which is Sunday.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know how much longer it
I
is.
saw it 2 days after it came out. I saw it Saturday morning, and
Okay.
now it's February. So it's Groundhog Day
Mm-hmm.
as we record. this.
Allegedly early spring.
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting an early
Allegedly.
spring? Yeah, that's... It's
Uh,
snowiest city in the
Rochester,
country.
New York. Yeah.
Rochester, New York, the snowiest city. Can you edit that out, Dan?
The
Thank
snowiest
you. No,
city.
you're not gonna...
No editing.
Damn.
My brain is trying now to remember 2 months ago to
Mhm.
when I saw Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, it has been a
And-
little while since it came out now.
And I want to see it again. Just
too.
this discussion. I got to go back and watch this again because
Mhm.
I've listened to a bunch of podcasts just to try and remind myself of things and
Mhm.
like little things that I even may have missed while I was watching it. I just want to go back because I bought my tickets the night before,
Right.
and there was 2 seats left right in the middle of the theater, which is crazy.
Perfect. Oh my gosh.
So, and it was 9:30 Saturday morning. So as
Uh-huh.
soon as I got up, we went to the movies and we went to breakfast.
That's great.
I was shocked. I saw opening night, Henrietta,
Okay.
Regal Cinemas. I went online that morning, not thinking I'd be able to find a ticket.
Uh-huh.
No problem. And I got there, walked in. The what's the group? The 501st.
Oh, the 501st.
501st was there.
Yeah,
so I was
Nikki.
like, okay, this is a big deal. There's tons of people here. Walked into the theater. It was maybe half full.
Wow.
Opening night, and I don't know if it's just because they had it on so many screens that maybe I was in the one theater that wasn't completely filled up, but I was shocked that there was an empty seat.
I think you're seeing
Anywhere.
3 factors in that. One, I think the obvious was that people thought, well, I'm not going to bother opening weekend because the entire planet's going to go out
Right.
and see it. Because
I was one of them until
that was
that.
one of my that was part
afternoon.
of my mentality is I'm not going to worry about opening night or night 2 because everybody on the planet's going to go see it. I'm not going to get a good seat, so I
Right.
don't worry about something like that. I'm wondering if like a mass kind of everybody was assuming at the same time.
Could be.
So they stayed away. 2, I'm wondering how much of that toxicity we were talking about. I thought, well, the movie's going to suck. I'm not really worried about going to see it because it's going to be a terrible movie.
By the
Everybody
way,
said so.
All those people who said, I'm not going to go see it,
Uh-huh.
You're all liars.
You all saw it.
they all saw it.
You all
Absolutely
saw it.
100%. All
Hey,
saw it.
there's my buddy who's overseas in Europe, Brendan Toogood. By the way, Brendan, you're still a moron. Moving on.
Really?
I forgot what he came up one time, but we were talking about. I think it was when we were talking about toxicity and nerd culture.
Okay.
And he had made several posts on Twitter speaking out against something Star Wars and just ripping people apart and whatnot. So it just became my mantra for a little while. Brendan Toogood, you're a moron, and I'm going to hold to that probably for a long time to come, just because that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So, but I wanted to get that out there. Anyway, moving on.
Well, I can't. I think what they did is they took Mark
'Cause
Hamill
in the
and
training
did-
scene, weren't they using the same hats as they were doing the Jedi
They
chase scene?
used the Return of the Jedi footage
Okay.
in order to do
The
the
training
training
scene in
in
Rise of
Rise of Skywalker.
Where you see Leia actually lightsaber battling.
Yeah, that was cool.
I thought that was kind of
That was
neat. That was a great tip. I mean, it's about time somebody explained the fact that yes, the other Skywalker got a little Jedi
Jedi
love him
training.
too. So it's just about time. Instead of just floating Leia in the Last Jedi.
Oh, let's see.
Suddenly she's flying. What's going on here? There's no explanation. Well, she's supposed to be strong. Wow.
That may
Yeah.
be the dumbest Star Wars scene. As
I
much as you
wanted to
hate Jar
like it,
Jar,
yeah.
that was the weirdest.
Which one?
Where she was blown out of the ship and then she
Floated
floated
back.
back.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
it was. So, but it leads. This now talks about her Jedi training
Right.
that allowed her to be
Mhm.
able to do that, and her Mary Poppins.
Yes,
Like,
Mary
Mary
Poppins. I
Poppins,
couldn't
y'all.
remember the name of it.
Mary
Yes.
Poppins coming back.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
So
Sorry, I went Marvel Universe there for a second. It's all right. Let's talk about the future. What would you like to see, Billy? What would be where would the Star Wars universe go? What storyline should they be looking
I
at?
would love to see them do something with Poe.
Okay.
But again, I'm not sure if they're done with this whole group of people.
Mhm.
If they are done with this whole group of people, I hate the thought of having to start over completely from ground zero and get used to brand new characters.
Mhm.
Like The Mandalorian, which Billy hasn't seen yet.
No,
I'm
I
I haven't
shocked.
seen it yet either.
Shocked. Who are you people?
I was waiting for the whole series, or at least the season to drop.
They're
but
all
it's
there.
now there.
They're
so-
all
Yeah.
there. But it was so well done.
Yeah.
And The Mandalorian, we didn't know who that was.
Mhm.
It's not Boba Fett. It's not any of those guys.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to give anything away about that because I don't want to spoil it for you guys.
It's Jar Jar.
But there were some. Wouldn't that be awesome? The helmet comes off and the little ears pop out.
He's thinking this is the way.
But they started from scratch, but there was enough familiar stuff around them to make it familiar. And Star Wars, there were stormtroopers in there,
Yeah.
and there was lightsabers in there, and there was the things that you were expecting to see. Some of them showed up.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
I'm gonna struggle with this. It's
Oh,
an
boy.
American space western. I don't like westerns.
you
You'll
like
like it.
Firefly.
You'll like it.
I
Firefly is a
did,
Western.
but I don't like. Okay, let me rephrase it. I don't like spaghetti westerns.
I think The Mandalorian.
Well, then have
I like
tacos
spaghetti.
and hamburgers instead of spaghetti.
Something, but I'm just like, oh, come on.
It's not that. It's not that westerny.
It's
Okay.
better than the last couple of movies.
Yes.
I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
And if you want to binge them all back to back to back, I also like the fact that we couldn't binge them.
Mhm.
So what ended up happening was we would watch it Friday night, and there was two nerds at work, and we're all texting back. We would start it at the same time.
Uh huh.
And we're texting back and forth with each other. It gave us something to talk about
Yeah.
around the water cooler, where if they just dropped them all at the same time and everybody just binged them, but I didn't binge it, or
Mhm.
maybe you got halfway through it,
Mhm.
then you're like, okay, I don't want to give anything away, and you're not going to talk about it. It
Right.
was,
Right.
it gave you a reason to talk about Star Wars.
A lot of the streaming services are starting to do that.
I liked it. I
Yeah.
preferred it.
Like CBS All Access is Picard is coming out
Right.
one episode at a time, and I know there are other shows that I've watched where it's been coming out one episode
Well,
at a
that
time,
also stops people from ordering it for a month,
and then disappearing.
watching it all, and then canceling.
Yeah, so there's a business aspect to it,
Right.
but I also like the practical aspect that it keeps you coming back, but it also gives you a chance to stop and think about what you just watched.
Mm-hmm.
See,
And-
I almost wish though, like a week is almost too long.
Yeah.
I wish it was like every 3 days, just so I can remember what happened in the previous episode.
That's what it says on last week's episode. Or
Or is there a
They do
well,
that.
I don't know if it's on the Mandalorian,
They do
but I
that.
know that on certain, like when I was
Yeah.
talking.
I mean that's why like 24 was one of my favorite shows.
Okay.
Back when that was on, and they always had previously on 24,
Mhm.
and then they catch up and almost sort of highlight the plot points that from the previous episodes that were going to be featured on that
Mhm.
night's episode.
They
So-
actually did a good job of, if you started at episode 5, they would get you caught up to speed
Oh,
in the
good.
first 30 seconds. Like, you could not watch the first 4 episodes
Mm-hmm.
and pick it up and be like, okay, I know what's going on.
This is what 24?
No, with,
Or-
with the
Mandalorian.
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 They
Okay.
just encapsulated it,
Yeah.
and each week it changed a little bit, but I think they did a good job of doing that. And I
Okay.
think anybody who's like a serious Star Wars fan is going to watch
Have you seen?
every second of all of
The
them.
Mandalorian?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it. Right up to the big shocker at the end where it's like, what?
There was a lot of shockers in there.
Yeah, that's that series finale for or season finale for I keep remembering, I keep addressing things like British TV does. Series season, same thing. That season finale of Mandalorian is like,
That's a cliffhanger.
wow.
Yes.
Now the person who was watching with me at the time, she sat next to me. She had no clue what that represented, so I had to explain it to her. And she's like, "Oh, that sounds interesting.
Right.
Okay."
And all the cameos. Did you know all the cameos? Some of the stormtroopers.
I caught a few of them.
I again don't want to give it away for you guys.
But I
Some
know Jason's-
major effing stars
Yeah.
ended up under those helmets, and I
Yeah.
was like, you hear the voice, you go, no.
Well, just the way that they behaved in that one scene.
Yes,
That's like,
that was totally him.
yeah,
Totally.
exactly.
Yep.
Now, my favorite Stormtrooper cameo is from Last Jedi. Daniel Craig
Oh, really?
was the one Stormtrooper that Rey convinces to leave the weapon, unlock the door, and and let
That was
her out.
Daniel Craig.
That was Daniel
I
Craig.
didn't know
James,
that.
was James Bond, man.
There's been a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Who's the redheaded singer guy?
Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran was in
What-
one.
Yeah.
Billy doesn't. Kevin Smith is my favorite guy.
Love
in the
Kevin
world,
Smith.
and
Yeah.
he was one of the stormtroopers.
I didn't know that either.
And not Rise of Skywalker, the one before that.
Last Jedi.
Last Jedi.
How
yeah.
fun.
Yeah. So it's just that's your best way to get a cheap cameo,
Yeah.
right? Is just stick 'em
Well,
in the
could you
helmet.
imagine? I mean, if you grew up watching that stuff,
Oh yeah.
and you happen, I don't know, maybe he knew Rain, maybe he knew the producer or something. I don't know how
Mhm.
they ended up with those roles, but they ended up with those roles. And how cool would that be to be an actor that grew up with this stuff? And even if you're only on set for a day to do this one scene, to just put on that armor and hear action and then cut, and then you go home and you're like, man, I was just in a Star Wars
movie, man. That would be amazing. I remember just fading back to the beginning of the conversation. I remember watching the first one, New Hope, over and over and over again, and never being bored by it, never being irritated with it, just always just being in the moment, feeling like you're in the trench with Luke on that final run, just always being involved in it and wanting to be a part of it. Just the lightsaber battles and everything, just wanting to be a part of it. So to have that opportunity, even if it's just that little brief second, that's that. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
All right, so more Poe going forward.
More Poe. I'd definitely be down for Poe.
Uh-huh.
If we had, I don't know, if we had new characters, it's hard to say what you would do with new characters because, I mean, the sky's the limit with that.
I would be interested to see what Rey did with the Force wielders of the future.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can really call them Jedi at that point. Is she going to create a whole new philosophy of it?
Could be.
That would be the story that I would be interested to see where that facet is going to go.
Some of the Rebels characters, who is the Padawan? Is it Ahsoka?
Ezra Bridger.
Ahsoka.
Oh, from Clone Wars was
from
Ahsoka.
Clone Wars. They put a book out with her that was really well done.
Yeah.
And I think you could do a lot with her because she was close with Anakin.
Yeah.
So having all of that to deal with, I mean, but again, you're going back in there. The only issue I really had with all of them was they seemed to rehash the story over and over. And George Lucas had this thing called Echoes, where he wanted to see echoes from his previous movies in the next movie. So that's why you had the father-son thing and the grandfather-granddaughter thing. It's like every series of movies you could see these echoes happening. And, when it came out, well, we've already said spoilers. So when it turns out that she's Palpatine's granddaughter,
right?
I'm sitting there going, have we not been down this road like 3 times already?
Yeah.
Come on, guys. But okay, it is what it is. And
well, I'm glad she wasn't a Skywalker though.
Yeah.
Or because then basically the only way you save the universe or save the galaxy and be the heroes if you were a Skywalker.
Right.
This spread it out. Now we're seeing the lineage of the evil is what's happening. She's the one who's balancing everything.
Right.
She's the one who's bringing everything to right. So I thought that was a nice little tip of the hat at the very least.
The Obi-Wan character, there was talk of a movie. Now they're making the Disney show.
Yeah.
And
or are they?
They are. They're just on hold. Apparently they had to rework some scripts or something like that. But where are they going with that? Like if they had his life on Tatooine from the time he went into exile until the time he popped up to save Luke, there's some stuff they could do there.
Yeah.
Where maybe he protected him and nobody knew. Like there's a lot of secret agent kind of stuff they could do with that.
Absolutely.
I would love to see, and I don't know, if they're done with that universe, I don't know where they're going to go with it.
I think they need Poe and Finn just because I want more BB-8 too.
Yeah. He is cool droid.
Yeah.
He was a lot of fun.
BB-8
I have
socket.
a pop socket on the back of my phone.
So but when you create over 42 years this huge, rich universe,
they can't just walk away from all of that.
You can't. There's got to be something. There's more story to tell somewhere. So we would be interested to see what would happen.
Phasma. I'd love to see a Phasma movie.
That'd
She's
be
pretty badass.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
That was a great character. Gwendolyn Christie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That'd be a lot of fun to watch, just to see different takes. It would be interesting to see a movie from the Empire side of things. Like the Empire's not just being rude and mean and evil. They're trying to bring order to the galaxy. And look at these rebels. Are to look at it from from their side, see how they would see it.
They did that a little bit with Finn. I mean,
true.
That was his. He was just a guy in a situation that he wasn't happy with. So if we find out, think about, was it Clerks or Clerks 2 where they got into a discussion about the guys that are the contractors on the Death Star, and all of a sudden they just get blown up.
Yeah. You don't think a stormtrooper knows how to install a toilet main, right?
They...
That's the whole stormtrooper and toilet main line, yeah. That's good. So there's a lot of stuff to do, and here's the thing: is we have this wonderful venue that we'll be able to continue talking about it, and we'll armchair the quarterback the hell out of it. Mandalorian season 2 has already been approved, so they're working on it. And I'm, it's interesting you brought up Ahsoka Tano, because I heard something the other day, and I'm just going to take a moment to look that up now that I'm thinking about it. And
By the way, while you're looking that up, they could make so many of the books into movies. The Tarkin book, where they went back and explained his whole backstory and how he got to where he is, and how his father, again, they went to the father thing, how his father was kind of a badass and was like, you know, you got to make it on your own. They put him through a trial in the book, and he had to go out and learn how to survive in the wild by himself. And that sort of led to his hardness and coldness of where he is in life.
Yeah. We know that other movies are in the works. MCU overlord Kevin Feige has been tagged to produce and oversee one. And then there's been a couple of other. Well, did Ryan Johnson have a trilogy that he's working on, or not anymore? Did he walk away from? We don't know. That's all working out right now.
But there is another trilogy.
There's another trilogy in the works somewhere. And this is what I just looked it up. This was a couple of months ago. Kevin Feige, in his Star Wars movie, is thinking about bringing Ahsoka back, and he's also looking at Brie Larson to play her.
That'd be cool.
So there's your
That would
Captain
be
Marvel.
cool.
Your Captain Marvel as your favorite Jedi Padawan. Your fallen Padawan. So it should be interesting. There's so many stories to tell.
Yeah.
I think that's the brilliance of Star Wars, and this has been the case even from when there was only one trilogy. One trilogy and a ton of books. There's always been a story to tell. I as a gamer, played D&D all my life. I got to play the Star Wars role-playing game for a while. So I got to be a Jedi. I got to be a scoundrel. I got to be a soldier. I got to make your own story. The universe that was created by George Lucas's imagination is so deep, so rich, and so expansive that there's so much stuff out there to do. I think that's part of the beauty of it.
Yeah.
I think it's what's always been a draw. Even when the movie hasn't been as great, it's still a draw.
It's amazing that he had a lot of this mapped out before the first movie ever happened.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't have funding for any of this, but he had this whole world sort of sketched out in a book, and it came to life through the films. And,
The Journal of the Wills.
It's pretty close to what he originally laid out.
Yeah, the last trilogy kind of went gonzo off his plan.
That wasn't all him. So.
Yeah, he gave it up. That's when you step away, this is what's going to happen. So he's going to take your vision, and if they don't know your secrets,
right,
they're going to go wander off in a different direction.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's fun. I think we're in a good spot here. So we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of upcoming events, and then we have our question